I've been sleeping with someone else for years, Ashley said, her voice sharp with a smirk, leaning against the kitchen counter. You're too boring to notice, David. Her words hit like a sucker punch, but David stayed calm, his hand steady as he set down his coffee mug. That's fine, he replied, his tone even. My lawyer's waiting outside with divorce papers and evidence. Ashley's smirk vanished, her eyes widening as panic crept in. She opened her mouth to speak, but David was already walking away, the front door clicking shut behind him. David Bennett, a 42-year-old high school history teacher in Austin, Texas, had always prided himself on being dependable. He was the guy who showed up early to coach his daughter Lily's debate team, the one who'd spend hours helping her craft arguments on everything from climate policy to classic literature. At 19, Lily was a sophomore at UT Austin, sharp-witted and fiercely independent, with her father's knack for asking the right questions. David saw her as his proudest achievement, the reason he pushed through long days grading papers and navigating faculty politics. His wife, Ashley, 40, was the opposite, vibrant, unpredictable, a freelance event planner who thrived in the spotlight. She organized charity galas and corporate retreats, her charm winning over clients as easily as it had won David 2 decades ago. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it worked. Or so he thought. That morning had started like any other. David was up at 6 a.m., brewing coffee and skimming the news before heading to school. Ashley was already gone, off to some early meeting, her calendar a maze of color-coded events. Lily texted him a meme about overpriced textbooks, and he laughed, firing back a quick reply. By noon, he was in the middle of a lecture on the Civil War when his phone buzzed in his pocket. He ignored it. Students came first, but when it buzzed again, he glanced at the screen. An unknown number. The message read, Lily isn't yours. Ask Ashley about Ryan. David froze, his chalk hovering mid-sentence. The words didn't make sense. A prank, maybe? Some kid messing with him? He shoved the phone back in his pocket and pushed through the class, but the message clung to him like damp air. By the time he got home, his mind was racing. Ashley was out, Lily at a study group. He sat at the kitchen table, staring at the text. Ryan. The name sounded vaguely familiar, like a half-forgotten face from a high school reunion. He tried to dismiss it, but doubt had already taken root. Over the next few days, David watched Ashley closely. She was her usual self, chatty about work, quick to change the subject when he asked about her day. But there were cracks. She'd linger over her phone, tilting the screen away when he walked by. Once, when he reached for her purse to grab her car keys, she snapped it shut, muttering about personal space. Then there was the locked drawer in her desk, one she'd never mentioned before. David wasn't the type to snoop, but the text had flipped a switch. He needed answers. On Saturday, while Ashley was at a client pitch, David took action. Lily had left her toothbrush in the bathroom after a weekend visit. He bagged it carefully, drove to a discreet clinic on the edge of town, and paid for a rush DNA test. The technician raised an eyebrow, but said nothing, promising results in 48 hours. David spent those hours teaching, grading, and pretending everything was fine. He took Lily out for burgers, laughing as she recounted a professor's bad joke, but his chest felt tight. What if the test confirmed the worst? Monday evening, the results arrived via email. David sat in his car outside the school, the engine off, the world muted. He opened the file. Probability of paternity, 0%. His breath caught. The numbers stare back, cold and final. Lily, his daughter, his debate partner, the girl who'd cried in his arms after her first breakup. She wasn't his. The betrayal cut deeper than he'd expected, not just for himself, but for the life he'd built around her. He drove home in a daze, the Austin skyline blurring past. Ashley was in the living room, scrolling through her tablet, planning another gala. David didn't confront her. Not yet. He needed more than a test result to unravel 20 years of trust. That night, while she slept, he crept to the attic, where boxes of old memories gathered dust. He found what he was looking for, a worn leather journal. Ashley's handwriting scrawled across the cover. She'd kept it during their early years, before Lily was born. David hesitated, then opened it. The entries were a gut punch. Dates, places, names, Ryan's among them. One page, dated a month before their wedding, read, Ryan's back in town. We met at the Driscoll. He still got that spark. David's steady, but Ryan's my thrill. He'll never suspect. Another, weeks later, pregnant. It's Ryan's, but David's the better choice. He'll be a good dad. David's hands shook as he read. The woman he'd loved, married, built a home with, had calculated every step, choosing him not for love, but for stability. He closed the journal, his jaw tight. Anger mixed with clarity. Ashley had played him for 2 decades, and he'd been too trusting to see it. But now, the truth was in his hands, and he wasn't going to let it slip away. He spent the night planning, not out of spite, but out of necessity. He'd confront her, but on his terms. He called his brother, Mike, a real estate agent who'd always been skeptical of Ashley's charm. "I need your help," David said, his voice low. "She's been lying to me. To all of us." Mike didn't hesitate. "Whatever you need, man. Let's nail this." By morning, David had a lawyer's number and a private investigator on speed dial. The text, the test, the journal, they were just the beginning. Ashley thought she knew him, thought he'd stay quiet, predictable. She was wrong. David wasn't boring. He was awake, and he was ready to take back his life. David's phone buzzed as he sat in his car, the journal still heavy in his lap. Another text from the unknown number. "Ryan's not done with Ashley. Check her accounts." David's pulse quickened. He didn't know who was feeding him these clues, but they were too precise to ignore. He drove to a coffee shop, away from home, and called Mike. "I need you to look into something," he said, voice steady despite the storm inside. "Ashley's hiding more than an affair." Mike met him an hour later, bringing his laptop and a contact, a forensic accountant named Carla, who owed him a favor. David handed over Ashley's journal and explained the DNA test results. Mike's jaw tightened as he read the entries about Ryan. "She played you, man," he said, shaking his head. "But we're not letting her walk away clean." Carla agreed to dig into Ashley's financials, starting with their joint accounts. David gave her access, feeling a mix of dread and resolve. Over the next 2 days, David kept up appearances. He taught his classes, graded essays, and texted Lily about her upcoming debate tournament, all while his mind churned. Ashley was her usual self, breezing in and out of the house, talking up her latest charity gala. But David noticed new details. Her phone was never left unattended, and she'd started using a second email for work stuff. He didn't confront her. Instead, he watched, cataloging every move. Carla called on Wednesday night. "You're not going to like this," she said. David met her at a diner, where she laid out a stack of bank statements. Ashley had been siphoning money from their joint savings for years. Small transfers, disguised as business expenses, to an account David didn't recognize. The totals added up to over $50,000. Most of it went to a guy named Ryan Delgado, Carla said. Hotel bookings, cash deposits, even a car lease in his name. David's stomach twisted. Ryan wasn't just a fling. He was a funded one. Carla traced the account to a local bank, and with Mike's help, David got a lead on Ryan, a former marketing exec who'd worked with Ashley years ago. Now a struggling salesman, Ryan lived in a rundown apartment on Austin's east side. David hired a private investigator, Elena, to track him down. Elena was blunt. "If Ashley's still in touch with this guy, I'll find proof. Give me 48 hours. David nodded, handing over the journal entries for context. While Elena worked, David dug deeper himself. He remembered Ashley's locked desk drawer and waited for her to leave for a client dinner. Using a paperclip and a YouTube tutorial, he picked the lock, a skill he never thought he'd need. Inside, he found a burner phone and a stack of receipts. The phone had text from Ryan, dated as recent as last week. "Need cash. Usual spot?" Ashley's replies were curt. "Tomorrow. Don't call." The receipts showed hotel stays and bar tabs, all on weekends when Ashley claimed to be at conferences. David photographed everything, his hands steady but his heart racing. Elena called the next evening. "Got something?" she said. She'd tailed Ryan to a bar where he met Ashley, capturing photos of them laughing, her hand on his arm. Elena also hacked into Ryan's email, finding messages where Ashley promised him one last payout if he kept quiet about Lily. David felt sick, but the evidence was gold. He sent it to his lawyer, Sarah, a no-nonsense divorce attorney who specialized in high-conflict cases. "This is enough to bury her in court," Sarah said. "But we need to move fast. She's too slick to not have a backup plan." David agreed. He spent the next day organizing the evidence: bank records, texts, photos, journal entries. He cross-referenced dates, matching Ashley's work trips to Ryan's hotel stays. The pattern was undeniable. She'd been living a double life, using David's trust and their savings to fund it. But one question burned. Why now? Why was someone tipping him off? He texted the unknown number, asking, "Who are you?" No reply came. Friday night. Ashley came home late, her phone glued to her hand. David was ready. He'd copied the evidence onto a USB drive and hidden the originals. "We need to talk," he said, standing in the kitchen. Ashley raised an eyebrow, still typing. "About what?" she asked, her tone light. David slid the DNA test across the counter. "About Lily and Ryan." Her fingers froze. For the first time, he saw fear in her eyes, but she recovered fast. "You're paranoid," she said, laughing. "Lily's ours. Stop digging into nothing." "Then explain this," David said, tossing the journal onto the counter. Ashley's face went pale as she recognized her own handwriting. She opened her mouth, but David cut her off. "And the bank transfers, the texts, the hotels. I've got all." Her confidence cracked. "You were the safe bet, Ashley," he said, echoing her journal. "But I'm not playing your game anymore. You've got 1 hour to pack and get out." Ashley stared, then scoffed. "You'll regret this," she said, grabbing her purse and storming upstairs. David didn't flinch. He called Sarah, who confirmed the divorce papers were ready. As Ashley packed, he emailed Elena, asking her to keep tabs on Ryan. If Ashley was planning a countermove, he'd be ready. When she walked out, slamming the door, David felt no relief, just focus. The hardest part was still coming, telling Lily. He texted her to meet tomorrow at their favorite cafe. She replied with a thumbs-up emoji, unaware her world was about to shift. That night, alone, David sat with the evidence, his mind racing. Ashley's betrayal wasn't just personal. It was calculated, a scheme built on lies and money. But he wasn't the naive teacher she thought he was. He'd trusted her once, but now he trusted facts. And those facts were about to change everything. David sat across from Lily at their favorite Austin cafe, the hum of conversation around them barely registering. His daughter, 19 and brimming with her usual energy, was mid-story about a debate team win when he slid the DNA test across the table. "Lily, we need to talk about something serious," he said, his voice low but firm. Her smile faded as she scanned the paper. "What is this?" she asked, her eyes narrowing. David handed her Ashley's journal, open to the page about Ryan. "Your mom's been lying. I'm not your biological father." Lily's face froze, her hands gripping the journal. She read in silence, flipping pages, her breath quickening. David explained the texts, the bank transfers, the affair, every piece of evidence he'd uncovered. "I raised you, Lily. You're my daughter, no matter what. But you deserve the truth." She shoved the papers back, her voice sharp. "You're destroying Mom's life over some old fling? You're pathetic." She grabbed her bag and stormed out, leaving David staring at the empty chair, his chest tight with a pain he hadn't expected. Back home, David channeled his hurt into action. He called Sarah, his lawyer, who was prepping the divorce filing. "Ashley's gone, but she's not done," Sarah warned. "Women like her don't just walk away." David nodded, knowing she was right. He'd already asked Elena, the private investigator, to keep tabs on Ryan Delgado. Elena's latest report confirmed Ryan was still in contact with Ashley, spotted together at a motel the night she left. David forwarded the photos to Sarah, adding them to the growing pile of evidence. The next morning, David met his brother Mike at a park to strategize. Mike, scrolling through his phone, showed David a social media post from Ashley, a photo of her at a charity event, captioned, "Stronger than ever. Grateful for my community." Comments poured in, praising her resilience. "She's building a narrative," Mike said, disgusted, "making herself the victim before you can expose her." David clenched his jaw. Then we moved faster. He contacted Carla, the forensic accountant, who'd uncovered more. Ashley had opened a secret account under Lily's name, funneling another $20,000 to Ryan over the past year. The transactions were disguised as consulting fees for a fake marketing firm. "This is fraud," Carla said. "If you take this public, her reputation's toast." David hesitated. Going public could hurt Lily, but staying silent let Ashley control the story. He decided to start small, sharing the financial evidence with a local journalist, Sam, who'd exposed nonprofit scams before. Sam agreed to investigate, promising to keep David's name out of it for now. 2 days later, Elena called with a bombshell. She tapped into Ashley's burner phone, recovering deleted voicemails. One was from Ryan, dated a week ago. "If David finds out, I'm out of here. You promised me the money, Ash." Another was Ashley's reply. "He's clueless. Just keep your mouth shut about Lily." David saved the files, his anger now a focus burn. He sent them to Sarah, who added them to the divorce case, noting Ashley's intent to deceive. But Ashley struck back. David woke to an email from her lawyer, accusing him of emotional abuse and claiming she'd left to protect herself. The letter demanded half their assets and alimony, citing her suffering during the marriage. David laughed bitterly. It was a desperate move, but dangerous. Sarah was unfazed. "She's got no evidence," she said, "but we need yours airtight. Give me anything that proves you were a stable husband." David spent the day gathering old texts from Ashley, thanking him for dinners or support, and neighbor testimonies confirming he was home during her alleged abuse periods. That evening, Sam, the journalist, called. He'd cross-checked Carla's findings with public records and found Ashley had misreported funds for 3 charity galas, pocketing donations through Ryan's fake firm. "This is bigger than your divorce," Sam said. "I'm running the story tomorrow. You okay with that?" David paused, thinking of Lily's anger. "Do it," he said. "She needs to face consequences." The next morning, the story hit Austin news sites. Local event planner tied to charity fraud. Ashley's name was everywhere, linked to doctored financials and Ryan's shell company. Social media erupted, with former clients demanding answers. David watched the fallout from his classroom, his phone buzzing with notifications. Ashley texted him, "You're ruining me. Call this off." He didn't reply. Instead, he emailed Elena, asking her to dig into Ryan's current whereabouts. If Ashley was panicking, Ryan might slip up. By nightfall, Lily called. Her voice was shaky. "I saw the news. Is it true?" David explained the fraud, keeping his tone calm. "I didn't want this public, but your mom's lies hurt more than just me." Lily was quiet, then hung up. David stared at his phone, hoping she'd come around, but bracing for the worst. Ashley's empire was crumbling, but the cost was high. His daughter's trust hung in the balance. He wasn't fighting for revenge anymore. He was fighting for truth. And he wasn't backing down. David woke to a flood of notifications. Sam's article had gone viral, shared across Austin's news outlets and social media, with hashtags like #CharityScam and #AshleyFraud trending locally. Former colleagues and clients posted screenshots of Ashley's gala budgets, pointing out discrepancies. One commenter, a former intern, claimed Ashley pressured her to falsify receipts. David read it all from his classroom, his coffee untouched. The truth was out, but the fallout was messier than he'd expected. Lily hadn't spoken to him since their call. Her silence cut deeper than Ashley's lies, but David stayed focused. He met Sarah, his lawyer, at her downtown office. She spread out the evidence: bank records, texts, voicemails, and Elena's photos of Ashley with Ryan. "This is enough for a clean divorce," Sarah said. "No alimony, no asset split. But Ashley's fighting dirty. Her lawyer just filed a restraining order, claiming you're harassing her." David's jaw tightened. "She's deflecting," he said. Sarah nodded. "We'll counter with your evidence. She's got no ground to stand on." Elena, the private investigator, called with an update. She tracked Ryan to a bar outside Austin, where he was bragging about easy money from Ashley. Elena recorded him admitting he'd known about Lily's paternity for years but stayed quiet for cash. "He's a liability," Elena said. "If Ashley's smart, she'll cut him loose." David doubted Ashley would. She'd built her lies around Ryan. He asked Elena to keep digging, especially into Ashley's recent financial moves. That afternoon, David got a call from Mike. "Check your email," his brother said. "You're not going to believe this." Mike had contacted an old co-worker of Ashley's, Jenna, who'd been fired after questioning a gala's budget. Jenna sent over emails from 5 years ago, where Ashley instructed her to adjust donation totals for a children's charity. The emails were damning, showing Ashley's pattern of skimming funds. David forwarded them to Sam, who was already working on a follow-up article. "This'll seal her fate," Sam said, "but gonna get uglier." Ugly came fast. Ashley posted a tearful video online, claiming she was a victim of a vindictive ex-husband and false accusations. She mentioned Lily, saying David was tearing their family apart. The video racked up views, with some sympathizing, others calling her out. David's phone buzzed with messages from friends and colleagues, some supportive, others asking if he'd gone too far. He didn't respond. Instead, he sent Sarah security footage from their neighbor's camera, showing Ashley leaving the house calmly the night he confronted her. No sign of distress. Lily texted him that evening, her words cold. "Why are you humiliating Mom? You're ruining my life too." David's fingers hovered over the keyboard. He wanted to explain, to beg her to see the truth, but he knew she wasn't ready. He replied, "I love you, Lily. When you want to talk, I'm here." No response came. David leaned back, the weight of her anger settling in. He'd known exposing Ashley would cost him, but losing Lily's trust was a price he hadn't fully prepared for. The next day, Ashley escalated. Her lawyer filed a formal complaint, accusing David of emotional abuse and financial coercion. She claimed he'd controlled their accounts, forcing her to hide money for safety. David met Sarah immediately, handing over bank statements showing he'd never touched Ashley's earnings. Sarah smirked. "She's grasping. The fraud evidence outweighs her story. But we need to shut this down fast." David agreed, giving Sarah access to old texts where Ashley praised his support, contradicting her claims. Elena's next report was a game-changer. She found a second burner phone Ashley had hidden in a gym locker, containing messages to a new contact, a lawyer named Greg. The texts outlined a plan to transfer assets to an offshore account before the divorce hearing. "She's trying to hide the money," Elena said. "But I got timestamps and account numbers." David sent the evidence to Carla, who traced the account to a shell company linked to Ryan. The web of deceit was unraveling, and David was ready to pull the final thread. Sam's second article dropped that night, detailing Ashley's email instructions to Jenna and the offshore account. The backlash was swift. Clients canceled contracts, and a local charity board removed Ashley as chair. Her video lost traction, buried under comments calling her a fraud. David watched the chaos unfold, but his focus shifted to Lily. He drove to her dorm, leaving a note under her door. "I'm fighting for the truth, not to hurt you. Here's Ryan's contact if you want answers." He included Ryan's number, hoping she'd see who her biological father really was. As David drove home, his phone buzzed. Another text from the unknown number. "You're welcome. She deserved it." David stared at the screen. Whoever this was, they knew Ashley's secrets, and they were on his side. He didn't reply, but the message fueled his resolve. Ashley's lies were collapsing, and he was one step away from justice. The courtroom was next, and David was ready to end this. David stood outside the Austin courthouse, the morning sun sharp against his eyes. Today was the divorce hearing, and he clutched a folder stuffed with evidence. Bank records, texts, voicemails, and Ashley's journal. Sarah, his lawyer, gave him a nod. "We've got her cornered," she said. "Her abuse claims won't hold up." David exhaled, his nerves steady, but his thoughts on Lily. She hadn't responded to his note or Ryan's contact info. He hoped the truth would reach her, but first, he had to face Ashley. Inside, Ashley sat across the courtroom, her posture rigid, her lawyer whispering in her ear. She doubled down on her narrative, claiming David's obsessive investigation was harassment. But the judge, a no-nonsense woman with a reputation for fairness, wasn't swayed by theatrics. Sarah presented the DNA test, proving Lily wasn't David's biological daughter, followed by Ashley's journal entries admitting the affair with Ryan. The courtroom was silent as Sarah played the voicemail of Ashley telling Ryan to keep quiet about Lily. David watched Ashley's face tighten, her confidence cracking. Sarah then laid out the financial fraud. $70,000 siphoned to Ryan's accounts, disguised as business expenses, plus the offshore account Ashley tried to hide. Carla's forensic analysis showed every transaction, backed by Elena's recovered texts. The judge's eyes narrowed as she reviewed the evidence. Ashley's lawyer argued she acted out of fear of David, but Sarah countered with texts from Ashley praising David's support and neighbor footage showing her leaving calmly the night he confronted her. The abuse claim collapsed under scrutiny. Ashley took the stand, her voice steady but rehearsed. "David controlled everything," she said. "I had to protect myself and Lily." The judge cut in, asking why she'd funneled money to Ryan for years. Ashley stumbled, claiming it was for consulting. Sarah pounced, presenting emails where Ashley instructed Jenna to falsify charity budgets. The judge's expression hardened. "This looks like a pattern, Mrs. Bennett," she said. Ashley had no answer. The ruling came swiftly. Ashley lost all claims to alimony and shared assets. Her personal accounts were frozen pending a fraud investigation. A restraining order barred her from contacting David or Lily without court approval. As the gavel fell, Ashley stared at the floor, her allies in the gallery gone. David felt no triumph, only relief. The lies that had defined his life for 20 years were finally exposed. Outside, Sam, the journalist, was waiting. His third article, published that morning, detailed Ashley's charity fraud with new testimony from former colleagues. It was picked up by national outlets, and Ashley's name was now synonymous with scandal. Her clients dropped her, and her social media accounts went dark. David thanked Sam, who shrugged. Truth sells itself, he said. But David knew the cost. Lily's silence was louder than any headline. 2 weeks later, David was grading papers when his phone rang. It was Lily. "Can we meet?" she asked, her voice small. They sat at the same cafe where he'd first shown her the DNA test. She slid an envelope across the table. "I met Ryan," she said. "He's a deadbeat. Said I was someone else's problem." Her eyes were red, but her tone was steady. "I read Mom's journal again. I get it now. You didn't ruin her. She ruined herself." David listened as Lily explained how she tracked Ryan down, hoping for answers. He'd been charming at first, then dismissive, admitting he'd taken Ashley's money but wanted no part of fatherhood. Lily showed David a letter she'd written, apologizing for calling him pathetic. "You were always my dad," she said. "I was mad because it hurt to know Mom lied." David nodded, his throat tight. "I just wanted you to know the truth," he said. "No matter what, you're my daughter." They didn't hug or cry. It wasn't their way. Instead, they ordered coffee and talked about her debate team, the conversation easing into familiar rhythms. Lily promised to come by the house that weekend. As she left, David felt a weight lift, not fully, but enough to breathe easier. He'd lost a marriage but gained clarity, and maybe, just maybe, he was getting his daughter back. David started a blog that month, sharing his story to help others navigate betrayal. Posts poured in from men and women who'd faced similar lies, thanking him for speaking out. He organized a small support group, meeting weekly at a local library. One evening, a man asked what he'd learned. David paused, then said, "Trust your gut. Love doesn't mean ignoring red flags. And truth, even when it hurts, sets you free." Months later, David and Lily cooked dinner together, laughing over a burnt casserole. The house felt different now, quieter but honest. Ashley faced fraud charges, her reputation in ruins. David didn't gloat. He'd already moved on. The unknown texter never contacted him again, but David didn't need to know who they were. Their tip had sparked his fight, and he'd finished it. As he and Lily watched a movie, her head resting on his shoulder, David knew he'd rebuilt something real, on a foundation no lie could shake.